I'm proud of you.
Why?
You took the loss to me in Tecmo Bowl well.
I had no one to blame, man. You're up 2 scores and you turn the ball over and whatever else I did. It was.
Well, you called it actually.
I know, but that's how Tecmo works.
I feel like this is almost this is going to be a Joe was right special episode because you were
lovely. Thank you.
I know you love those. I guess that's the consolation for losing to me in Tecmo because you were right. You called it. It's like you get it. You're going to get a turnover. You're going to get a turnover.
There's usually 1 per team per half.
Yeah.
Usually.
And sure enough, like 2 plays later, I think I ended up with a pick and then I turned that around into some points and I won the game. Now, it wasn't as dramatic as the championship game that ended in a freaking safety.
That was amazing. Steven. Now, that was some player 1 magic. There is something to be player
there
1.
Is. This is why when I played listeners, I was player 2. It was like you can be player 1.
Give them all the
all
advantage they could possibly have. No, we had a great time over at Shady, so I'll have to do that again.
You ready to start the I was right extravaganza?
I feel like they're all ancillary points, but I'll take my wins where I can get them.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Let's do this. Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovias inside Eford Studios, downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Joe got a new Kyocera hub last week. The best part about Copiers Plus, they'll do an amazing job setting it up for you. Super easy for you to understand, right?
Okay, so
see, but this is what I was leading to. This is what I was leading at. Customer service is key.
Drew and Jerome come to the house. They set it up. They show me everything.
Yeah.
You have a pin, this whole thing, right?
Right.
The next day, the tax guy was like, hey, I need this document. And I was like, wait a second, I can do this.
Yeah,
I can do this.
You didn't text me. I was excited.
So I hit a button. It looked like it did something. I had to email it. I was trying to email it. Right?
Sure.
And I get this message. And I immediately text Drew. And Drew did not immediately text me back. He was doing probably real work.
Mm-hmm.
And then like 5 minutes later, I was like, oh, I have to go through pinpoint scan in order to make this. Because I didn't enter the pin.
Right.
Because obviously they track all of your usage and stuff like that. So I was like, oh. And then I solved it. And then I texted him. I'm like, I solved it without you.
Good
he was
for
like,
you.
He goes, that was a test. And I said, thank you very much.
Good for you. Good for you.
But if I could figure it out, you could figure it out. Also, figure out a way to save yourself some money. Go to copiers-plus.com.
Speaking of tests, there was a test for both Duke and North Carolina on Saturday at the Smith Center. Top 10 matchup. We can go through all the rigmarole of, it's the 49th time and there's this score and that score, whatever. This was a test. The game that always delivers, Joe. And North Carolina delivered exactly what I would expect out of North Carolina. They played, even though Duke did score 84 points, and people want to nitpick the defense for UNC. There was a nitpick of UNC's defense. You're making a face. I'm not making this up. There was like Duke's like, I'm sorry. While Duke hung around, I'll reiterate this point that I made in the totally not a panic room I did with Brownlow on Saturday after the game.
That was good to see, by the way.
It was good to see Brownlow talking some hoops again late at night. Duke hung around, but I never felt that Duke at any point was going to find a way to come back in this game because North Carolina would do two things, either make a key stop or, more importantly, make a big bucket, or not necessarily a key stop, fight for a loose ball. That was something that John Shire was very upset about after the game. I never really felt that Duke was going to get back in this thing in the second half. Carolina was in control throughout for a variety of reasons. So Carolina delivered. There's some questions about Duke going forward, specifically Kyle Filipowski, and how they're going to have to overcome some roster limitations at the 4-5, which I think really came to the forefront on Saturday night against Carolina, how Armando Bacot dominated that game. But that's a conversation we can have for later. I said my piece on UNC Saturday night. What did you think?
I think they said it all in the first half of that game. And, I think Bacot is the big narrative coming out of this, not only for the way that he played, but for what he said. Mm-hmm. The ACC runs through us.
It does.
Runs through me.
It does. It does.
This was an easy one going into the game to look at and go horses for courses. Like, you knew Ryan Young would have to play way too much against Bacot because,
he did.
Mitchell is an athletic guy, but he's slighter. He's going to have a hard time. That's got big, like Bacot's about to take you to school, and he did. He had one of those games. Interesting, kind of coming out of this, the way that people view Bacot at this point, right?
So
like I have my own limitations of Bacot, and we had the famous Efton Reed comparison. I don't think he's an elite player. I think he is a guy who is at his best as a complementary part. And as a guy, when he rebounds and controls inside and gives them extra possessions, I think that's his best role. That's not a bad thing. I just you think of some Carolina greats and Hansborough and Jameson and some of those other interior scorers, and I just don't put him on that level, but that's not a bad thing.
Here's Jaden, who covers Carolina for the News and Observer, had the video audio of Armando Bacot, the comments that really got a lot of play after the game. You might have read them, but here's what he sounded like.
I knew we couldn't lose this game. I wouldn't allow us to lose this game. And I mean, I see what everybody say. I told you, I don't miss nothing. And just going into this game, I mean, it was just a different fire. And really, I came in just pissed off, just seeing, some of the things people say. And I just love this university so much, and I think I see stuff like people questioning me and like how much I really wanted and stuff like that. I took that personal.
I took that personal, Joe. The Jordan. Come on, that got people hyped. I took that personal.
Previous 3 games, 5-7, 5-4, 9-9.
Yeah.
I mean, if you believe believe his own family's reporting that he makes more than $1 million to play college basketball for North Carolina, 5-7, 5-4, and 9-9 ain't getting it done, man.
Well, what's getting it done? But I'm glad you brought that up, because I was actually listening to the Eye on College Basketball podcast with Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander on my drive-in after dropping the kids off at school. And Parrish was like, hey, Armando Bacot was like number 2 on our players to watch. He's an All-American candidate. But this is his first, 25-10 game in like 3 months, right? And I get that part. But you and I have talked about this.
Tennessee. He was outstanding against Tennessee.
You and I have talked about this when it comes to Armando Bacot. While he can be a stat monster, it's important to note what that stat monster is coming from. Go be the garbage man. Go be what we need you to be. I have made the argument, you have made the argument, that Armando Bacot has been what North Carolina needs on the defensive end. We were obsessed over the removal of Caleb Love and what that means for Armando Bacot and RJ Davis. We've seen clearly what it means for RJ Davis with Elliot Cadeau coming on. He doesn't have to be the point guard. He can play off the ball. He can go be what he's naturally meant to be. Bacot has almost become more complementary with the addition of Harrison Ingram being a rebounding machine, but I still think that's a good thing. You still have to account for Bacot.
Yeah, he's leading to Ingram's rebounding success.
Yes.
He is almost half responsible for that. Here's the thing with Bacot. I think we talked last week about new NIL problems.
Yeah.
With DJ Burns, and we talked about motivation, and I think people can see that the conversation evolves, right? It goes from, hey man, the players should be paid, to our other mindset of now all of a sudden, like last year, we would have these conversations about Jaquavion Smith making $500,000 or $400,000, and you're like, hey man, if you're going to make $400,000, Nigel Pack at Miami. Hey man, if you're going to make $750,000,
sure,
you got to be a whole lot better than what we're looking at right now. That's fair. Remember Josh Pastner telling this guy at the front row, like their payroll is over $2 million. Right? Our payroll's in the negative, right? So I think part of what we're seeing at a Bacot is, first of all, he did start the season with a bunch of 20 and 10s. So you're like, oh, okay, this is what he's going to be this year. That has changed. And, the Tennessee game, UConn game, and then the Duke game. Those are big effing games, by the way. And he showed up in the big effing games. So you have to give him that. But part of it is looking at some of these other games and you're like, okay. How do you stay on 100 the whole time? Like I tell you, anybody can podcast on Monday.
I don't think it's about staying at 100. I think actually this is a credit.
You don't think he has lulls?
No. I think what this is this gets to the other aspect of Saturday night.
I'm not saying he's being lazy and like eating donuts, but like you have lulls. You heard what he said.
I get
the words that came out of his mouth were, I had a little bit extra on this one.
I get that.
Okay.
I get that part. I think what we're missing here is Hubert Davis has everybody buying into what they're trying to do.
Oh, he's pushed every single right button this year.
We've talked about that a lot. He is your ACC Coach of the Year with how they've turned this thing around. He's the ACC Coach of the Year just by watching this team play and everybody buying into.
Yeah, forget about
roles.
Last year.
Pushing the
guys who know their roles.
Hey, let's look about in-game coaching decisions, right? Elliot Cadeau, it was a little too much for him at times because again, Duke is good defensively, and RJ Davis had a slow.
Duke's better on the perimeter defensively.
Duke had a slow night, or Carolina had a slow night, particularly with RJ Davis because Tyrese Proctor. You see the donuts, but Tyrese Proctor did a really, really good job on RJ Davis. But of course, when you focus your defensive efforts on the ACC Player of the Year, it opened up everything else. But there was a moment there where Elliot Cadeau was a little too sped up, was kind of getting into his own head with mistakes. They put Seth Trimble in, who has been a very good player off the bench, to come in and give you like really great, 18 quality minutes. I think he scored 10 points, had some key buckets. That's pushing the right buttons. So if we understand that Hubert Davis is pushing the right buttons, then I think that also extends itself to Armando Bacot not being so caught up in the, hey, wait a minute, this is my last year at Carolina. What's more important to Armando Bacot, getting 20 and 10 a night or actually putting something up in the rafters? And if you're willing to understand that I might not be getting my double-doubles every night, but I'm still affecting the games in other ways, and I'm helping my teammate Harrison Ingram do what he is able to do, and RJ Davis is able to thrive because I'm also able to do what I'm doing, I think that's a good thing. I think we're having two separate conversations. If you're looking at Armando Bacot's not living up to the ACC Player of the Year hype, okay, fine. But I'm watching Carolina play, and I see a team, and in order to be a team, guys like Armando Bacot and all the money that goes along with it, he has to understand his role. And I think he's understood his role very, very well tonight. And to your point, if you need him to have the big game, if you need him to have the monster game, like the Tennessee game, like the Duke game, clearly he's capable of doing it. I think this is a little bit too much nitpicking on Armando Bacot in the season he's had so far. A little too much. Now,
I'm just going by his words.
On the flip side,
that's fine.
That's fine. On the flip side of that, I think we can all agree that Kyle Filipowski is not having the season many expected him to have. And there could be a variety of reasons as to why that is. People will point out he had off-season surgery. I can point out that it seems like every time I watch Kyle Filipowski play in person, he is on the floor retying his shoe because he did something to his ankle, right? And it was, while he did get it into 20-point territory, he had to do it on a bunch of shots, and he got embarrassed on Saturday night.
Can I give you one of my favorite Rod Brindamore stories, and one of the stories that he didn't talk to me for a little while about?
Okay. So
Luke was very smart back when we were at the News and Observer. Mm-hmm. When Rod Brindamore got a divorce, he was like, "Hey, can you go write about this? It's filed. Just take the paperwork, write a story. There's like a $5 million, a settlement involved in this whole thing." And he's like, "Just go get the court work, write the story, and then you have to go ask Rod, like, hey, here's the thing." And he was struggling. He was flat out struggling that year. Like it was totally and completely obvious that you were having a poor year, despite his reaction at the time, which was, "I don't get any power play minutes. That's why." And I said, okay. And that's what I wrote the story. Now, if you know anything about Rod's first wife, she was eccentric. So the moment I met her in 2002 during the Stanley Cup Finals, I was like, you're married to Rod Brindamore? Okay. Very different people. Very, very different people.
It happens that way.
It does. So
I can say that about you and Jess. You married Joe? Oh, okay.
I write this story.
Bless you.
I write the story. Rod Brindamore now does not talk to me for a good chunk of time. Mm-hmm. That was the 03 season, I believe. 06 happens. They get to the Stanley Cup. They win the Stanley Cup. Everybody and their mother's ecstatic. Rod wins this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I think it was at the time Fox Sports South.
Yeah, that was the thing.
Does this,
and they had their own digital outlet too.
They did this whole thing about the Canes and Rod Brindamore. They had Rod Brindamore's dad do an interview from their home in Campbell River. Mm-hmm. And the dad goes, "Well, when Rod got a divorce, that was really hard on him. It was really difficult. That season was, people don't realize how hard that divorce was on him." and I'm paraphrasing here, and I'm just like, I'm watching this at my home, and I'm like, that. He was mad at me all these years, and here's his pops going, well, that was. I say this all as a way.
Where's this going?
I say this all as a way of setting up. Kyle Filipowski is going to be in the G League next year. He's going to get hot. He's going to get called up by the Thunder, and he's going to fit in, and you're going to see him with Holmgren and Giddey and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he's going to, have this little hot spell. And they're going to interview Kyle Filipowski, and he's going to go, well, I was never really healthy last year.
Right.
I had major surgery on my hip before my sophomore year at Duke, and now I'm 100% healthy.
I'm a healthy guy now.
But at the time, you're like, I'm not all that.
That was an adventure. That was an adventure, John.
You like where I went on that one?
I really didn't know where you were going on this. Yeah, and you're right. You're right. I could have used other examples of, if we were going to go the hockey route, you could have gone the cliche. You come to find out, oh, by the way, this player was playing with his leg detached for 5 of the 7 games in the Stanley Cup.
Glenn Wesley had a broken foot that he played the final 3 games.
You could have gone that direction?
No, that has to be like a year later.
No, I know.
When they finally come around to it, and they're like, well,
Anyway, I see what you're saying. And I think you and I are in agreement that we don't know what's really going on with Kyle Filipowski. However, I can tell you that whereas Hubert Davis really won in the portal and addressed needs in the portal,
they didn't add anybody in the portal.
Now that we've gotten this far in the Duke season, it makes you wonder, Josh Shire really could have used a 5 in the portal.
They didn't get anybody in the portal. You look at this recruiting class, and it was such a weird recruiting class nationally. Like even McCain, their highest rated player, was 14. Then you have TJ Power.
McCain's come on, though.
TJ Power, who's really done nothing. Sean Stewart, does he play? I don't know. Caleb Foster. They signed 4 guys on the top 25. Yeah. And of the people who actually showed up in college basketball, they have like 4 of the top 15 who actually showed up in college basketball. They're not difference makers. McCain has become something.
He's become something.
But the rest of them, and to not add anyone in the portal.
That's the key. That's the key. Recruiting, that sorts itself out over time.
Heck, go out and get him one of these Stanford guys. They're a dime a dozen. The whole roster's for sale.
Here's John Shire after the game. This is now the second time I've seen. I thought after the Pitt game, John Shire was mad. We now have a new level of John Shire as a dad. Not mad, just disappointed.
Wasn't happy with the way we competed, and that's disappointing for me. And you can play really well and compete your butt off and still lose to them because they're a really good team, but we didn't compete to the level that you need to have a chance to beat this team tonight, and that's what I'm disappointed about. But I know there's second half of ACC play to go where this team can be really good, but tonight was not good enough for me or for our program, for our team.
Thanks to Robert Willey for providing that video for us from the News and Observer. So Shire's right. Seeing that out of Duke in this particular game would drive somebody who's been in this contest, both as a player and as a coach, nuts. Okay.
They gave up 93 points.
And this has been a consistent issue for Duke throughout this season in that there have been some questions of compete or some questions of commitment to defense and rebounding, right? And I do think that it was telling, and I mentioned this on the totally not a panic room on Saturday night. There wasn't a single question about Kyle Filipowski from anybody, but I don't think there needed to be, because I think what was not said about Kyle Filipowski was the point that in a game where your biggest players need to step up, he had a small night, so small to the point where the entirety of the Carolina bench and players had fun at his expense, okay, doing the too small thing and everything else. I'm not saying that Duke is a bad team. They're a top 10, top 15 team. They simply just have some roster mismatches that were exposed. And I do think that comes down to the 4-5 and that Kyle Filipowski needs somebody else to unlock what he's capable of doing, like we saw down the stretch last year. There's stuff going on right now, whether it's, lingering injuries or recovery or whatever it is, or just being frustrated that he doesn't like to get pushed around. And without anybody there to absorb that, it really becomes a focal point for Duke. So Duke will be back in action Wednesday night against Notre Dame at home. They should be fine. I'm going to stick consistent to what I said going into this game, that I'm not going to vastly change my opinions on either team based on the result. I will maintain, though, as we put a wrap on this conversation, that Carolina at least gave me what I expected. I was disappointed in the way that Duke came out in this game. Not saying they can't turn things around, as Shire said. They got half the season to go. This might be the ass kicking they need to kind of get things going, maybe to challenge Kyle Filipowski to be more consistent. But then again, he might be hurt enough where he can't. So there's some questions about Duke going forward, even though I still think they're at least a top 10, top 15 team in the country. I mean, the talent's there, Joe. The talent's clearly there. I think the talent's there relative to the rest of college basketball. It's there.
Relative, sure.
But they just haven't had a lot of continuity, but there's still time to make it happen. Still time to make it happen. Let's get to some housekeeping. Housekeeping is brought to you by Enovana. Check them out, enovana.com, ENOVANA.com. Green Cleaning. They're coming out to the house on Tuesday. It's funny. It was a busy weekend in the Ovia's house between going to basketball games, kid stuff, spend an entire afternoon at Shady's playing Tecmo Bowl. I did not have time to get much done around the house. But this is where having somebody clean your house is beneficial. Time is money. We save you money, but now we're saving you time with Enovana Green Cleaning. So they could come out to the house tomorrow. I'm very excited about this.
I could almost hear a Rand jingle to Enovana.
Well, that would require Rand to return our texts.
BANANAS.
I could
hear it. I could kind of sort of hear it. I know this, though.
I see where you're going with it.
You want to get your house cleaned. You want to save yourself some time and the effort. I repaired 3 bathroom sinks this weekend.
Oh, geez.
Yes. And I broke one.
How's your back?
There were 3.
Or how's your neck?
Not good. But
okay.
The Enovana crew might need to come over to Garner to help me out. Go check them out at enovana.com.
Big thanks to everybody who showed up and hung out at Shady's in Garner yesterday for our first Tecmo Super Bowl tournament. I don't know if we're going to do it again. Maybe we try to make this an annual thing. Maybe we pick another video game for the next Sunday in between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl.
Only if Josh can get the quad box to work.
Oh, man.
That was close. We were close.
Yeah, so
Josh,
we
could probably do that with like a Madden or some sort of new game, I'm thinking.
We could probably do it.
Yeah.
We could probably do that. NFL Blitz or something like that. Oh. That'd be a lot of fun, right? So big thanks to everybody who showed up. It was a good time. The ZD was on point.
Thank you.
That was really, really good ZD, man. There was no flan because I forgot my mom was out of town.
Ken could not wait to give you a hard time.
I know.
The flan.
No, my mom was in Denver because my cousin is about to have a child. So she's out there helping.
Priorities, man.
Hey, no, I totally get it.
Tecmo, childbirth. Tecmo, childbirth.
Yeah. Like all that kind of stuff. So I get it. So maybe next time. Maybe.
I like where you're going.
I can get my mom to make the flan for our next event, Joe.
Our next event, the OG Tailgate. That's right. We did one hockey game in November. Now we have a hockey game in February, the OG Tailgate. We will be with Butcher's Market and also our friends from Sweetwater, the 420, the official arena beer of the OG. That's Saturday, February 24th. It's a Saturday game. 8 p.m. start, which means we will max out our tailgate with our friends from the Butcher's Market in our normal spot by the pine trees over by the east entrance, but behind the eye there at the east entrance. Come check us out. You don't need a ticket. You don't need admission. You just come. You come hang out with us. We'll have some tasty meats for you from the Butcher's Market and some beer from our friends at Sweetwater.
I need to order some. We got to order some swag.
This is a swag event, you think?
Stickers, at least.
I think we still have a bunch of stickers.
I've given out most stickers, actually. So I'll order some new stickers. Maybe we'll do some one-off shirts.
Whatever you do, don't give away the Carolina Cobras license plate.
And that thing's sweet.
What an addition, my friend. What an addition.
I got another Cobras thing that you're going to see tomorrow.
I mean,
very excited.
That thing is in pristine condition. I don't know how Russ did that.
So shout out to Russ Henry, Russell's Love Muscle, who was at the Tecmo Bowl tournament. He had texted the old, we have a group chat. Me, Chris Clark, John Marble.
The 850 chat.
Well, it's technically called 850 the balls.
The balls.
Yes, 850 the balls for my very infamous slip up when I was doing a 2020 sports update. And I said, all right, Joe Ovia's 850 the balls. I don't know why I said that, but I did.
2020. People thought that was the year.
Anyway, so Russ had texted. He was at an estate sale and he saw this with like some other stuff. I'm like, auto purchase. It was like $4. Oh wow! It's like $4. Please buy that for me. So yeah, that Cobras thing is fantastic. Speaking of,
shouts to Todd Ridge and Nate Boudreaux. They probably still have a bunch of Cobra swag.
Well,
somewhere.
speaking of defunct football, Josh from Whitaker and Hamer, he's got an extra Skyhawks pennant that I need for him to donate to the studio.
He does.
I need that in the studio, man. Come on now. Anyway, so big thanks to everybody who showed up.
The tailgate. So come see us February 24th. It's a Saturday, the OG tailgate. Thanks to our friends over at the Butcher's Market.
Now, while we were hanging out at Shady's for the Tecmo Super Bowl tournament, Matt Davis, State Farm, he was there. He was in the house. We're very excited to see him.
Through and through, man.
Give him a call, 919-779-8277, insuregarner.com, theoginsurance.com to save money on your home and auto. Let's go.
Yeah, do what Gold Star listener Troy did. Call them or go to theoginsurance.com, figure out how much you can save. He saved 40%.
Mm-hmm.
So the savings are there. Matt Davis can take care of you. Check it out, theoginsurance.com.
Also, big thanks to Home Field. They just dropped some new merch for Duke, Carolina, and NC State.
Do we have the right years now on these Big Four championships?
I don't know. So if you're watching on YouTube, I pulled up the homefieldapparel.com website. They've got a new lacrosse championship sweater, or crew neck, which I'm hype about. But here's the key part. They've got a new Big Four shirt, 1977 champs.
The heels?
The heels.
I think that tracks.
Okay, I got to double check on that one. They got 82 national champs, which is it's an amazing shirt. But I'm really curious about the Big Four, the 8th annual Big Four, 77 champs.
Do you know who still gets no love, which we need to get on our people for?
What's that?
I would absolutely buy an 00 Final Four hoodie. The forgotten 00 Final Four team.
Yeah, I could see that.
They would literally have built a statue for that team at NC State.
I could see that. The
8th seed who goes to the Final Four with 2 football players helping.
We wouldn't stop talking about it. You're right. Well, speaking of Big Four, so like they dropped Duke. They dropped some Duke stuff. So they got a crew neck. They got a Duke tournament, Big Four tournament champ, 78, 79. Right. They also got the back-to-back 91, 92 crew neck, which is sweet. I'm a big fan of that one. And they also dropped some NC State stuff as well. So let me pull up the NC State. But what I'm noticing is that they don't have an NC State Big Four. I got to get to the bottom of this. But they did drop a 1998 Wolfpack women's tee. They've got Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf. That's a good one. And they also have a cool new basketball one that says back to pack with the state of North Carolina in the background. Use the promo code OG23 to save 15% off your order. I want to get to the bottom of the Big Four thing. Again, that's homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code OG23. Speaking of the Wolfpack, you decided to go to the NC State Georgia Tech game. This is going to lead to a larger conversation about ACC vibes, but Georgia Tech coming off an upset of North Carolina in the building, CW game, NC State took care of business. And I feel like that's kind of NC State's resume story so far this season. They've essentially beaten all the teams they should beat, save Virginia Tech. But the problem is they still don't have any necessarily wins of note. So they've been holding court. NC State just has to go do something in conference play the rest of the way to help themselves out. But they did what they were supposed to do on Saturday against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I thought Saturday was a great illustration of what I've been talking about this whole time, and that there's just not that big of a difference between these teams.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech has wins over Duke and Carolina. Sure enough, those were in Atlanta, but here they come to Raleigh. They fought after a slow start. They had a 5-point lead in the second half, and then State cranked up their defense to the point where they ended up winning this game 82-76. DJ Horn, for better or worse, is the bus driver of this team. When he gets hot, he can carry them. Jaden Taylor found a little bit of his game too. I think Casey Marcel is finding a little bit what he has to find in order for this team to be really good. But my takeaway was State played well enough in the second half, did what they had to do to win a basketball game that, again, they won't get credit for because it's not Duke or Carolina. But the truth of the matter is the rest of this league is very, very similar. Look no further than Virginia and Clemson, 66-65, in one of the most Clemson-like losses in the history of Clemson basketball. As my friend Josh Goodson likes to say, maybe Clemson basketball is just NC State football. It's just never going to happen for them. Brad Brownell might be absolutely allergic to the NCAA tournament. How this team can go out of the league and win the games that they did.
Yeah.
And now to come into the league and play the way and do what they're doing right now in the league is like, it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense.
I'm gonna do the rare thing here. Mark it down. I'm gonna give Josh. I'm gonna give Josh a lot of credit.
Josh is onto something with this one.
Josh, I'd never really considered that with Brad Brownell and Clemson basketball, but damn, that's actually that
thing
that hits.
And then
that hits.
The rest of the league, Louisville won at home, and they beat one of those teams who I do think, while their record is 12-9 now, like I look at Florida State and I go, that looks like an NCAA tournament to me, right? When you just watch teams. But obviously your resume, as you like to say, the losses have to count at some point. That Louisville loss is going to hurt Florida State.
Hurt them.
And look at that. Wake Forest. Weird. Oh, that's wild. Well, crazy. How did they finally figure out how to play in the second half?
Weird.
Our friend Steve Forbes finally having in Dave Doran's voice, finally having a second half with 57 points.
Yes.
After they yacked again against Pitt in the second half.
They weren't finally dribbling it off their shoe.
They finally came out and played pretty good. Deeks look pretty good. 99-70.
Hold on. Is this your, because they finally figured it out in the second half? You're like, here we go with Wake.
I'll just say this, like,
UNC's running away with it. UNC's head and shoulders like better than everybody else. But anyway,
for sure, and they're going to win the league. And there's no doubt about it. And by the way, I didn't say that UNC wasn't going to win the game in Chapel Hill.
Right.
It'd be interesting to see what happens if they meet in Washington. I would like to see that. I'm interested in seeing that.
I'm with you. That'd be a fun game.
Seeing that.
That'd be a fun game. I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. I still think that North Carolina is head and shoulders above everybody else in the ACC.
They are and they aren't. I mean, they just lost in Atlanta.
That happens. They weren't going to go. They weren't going to go undefeated in conference play.
Yeah, but you're saying head and shoulders. I'm saying they're better, nights. But
yeah. Anyway, there's all sorts of reasons why a team might lose on a particular night. I do think it's interesting that Georgia Tech has these 2 wins, against Duke and Carolina. While everybody else has been struggling to do so. But anyway, I thought that was, but it's funny. You mentioned the Florida State it looks like an NCAA tournament team, but you're not helping yourself when you
lose. Florida State, Virginia Tech. I mean, these are all like teams that lost.
An NCAA tournament team, but they've lost. And I want to blow this up.
I don't think Pittsburgh's that far off the bubble. Syracuse isn't far off the bubble.
I want to blow this up to a larger conversation about the ACC because there was a thought going into the weekend and there's a thought coming out of the weekend. The thought going into the weekend and getting ready for the Duke Carolina game, I had put this out on social media and the response to this was interesting. That I think we don't know on a national level how to talk about Duke and Carolina now. This was a top 10 matchup that typically would get the people going, okay? But without Mike Krzyzewski, without Roy Williams, what happened 2 years ago in New Orleans, there's almost like this hangover that we're still trying to get out of. They need that recovery drink from the butcher's market.
I had one this morning. It was delicious.
To get us out of whatever malaise we seem to be in when it comes to this matchup, because the Smith Center was rocking on Saturday night. The students were hyped. The students still care. They're out on Franklin Street. It was, if you were in the building and it came across on television, when the game actually happens, you can't find a better environment. You just can't. And when they go back to Cameron Indoor Stadium, it's going to be the same thing. You're not going to find a better environment. But going into the game, there was this kind of like, it was almost a dismissive conversation. I'll use the Eye on College Basketball podcast as an example of this. Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander were just kind of like just making jokes. They weren't really previewing the game. They were just kind of making jokes about, is it 8 miles? Is it 9 miles? They were kind of doing what we did sarcastically about the records and everything else before we actually got into talking about the game. And then coming out of the game, there was more interest in what happened with Purdue. There's more interest with what happened with Kansas. I put this out there. And I think the reason why we're here is, and I tweeted this, I would love to see the way North Carolina is playing now. I would love to see them play Kentucky again, a game they lost. I would love to see them play UConn again. You might think that UConn's still the best team in the country, but if you think that the Carolina squad that played UConn back in December is the same, well, then you're mistaken. I'd love to see this. But there's this weird attitude that because we already saw these games, well, we know what North Carolina's about. The game was back in December. Why are we still using that as some sort of knock on UNC when you can literally watch them play now and understand they're one of the best teams in the country?
One of my favorite Kay Yao quotes that she used to have was, "Success is not final and failure is not fatal." And when you look at Carolina, particularly in basketball, we get this sense, and I remember great moments in OG history when the Bucks lost a game to the Celtics in the playoffs and everybody was overreacting. And you were like, what? Why is this? Like, why have we turned this into a referendum on Giannis Antetokounmpo?
Yeah.
Why have we suddenly thinking that the Celtics, at the time very young, are going to be that much better than the team that just had the best record in the NBA over one game?
Oh, well, we do that all the time.
Over one game.
Is this series over?
Right.
It's the classic Mike Greenberg. He will show up on Get Up the next morning. It's always Greenberg. And I say this as somebody who has nothing but respect for Mike Greenberg.
Hustle. Yeah.
He is the best in the business at what he does. Okay. You want to talk about bus drivers? I call him a traffic cop. He is the best in the business of keeping a show going. That's why Mike Greenberg makes the money that he makes. But Mike Greenberg has a crutch. And that crutch, like everybody else in this business, we all have one. His crutch is when there's a 7-game series, he will come out the next day and go, "Is this series over?"
It's over.
No, it's not. It's one game.
I think that's the reaction to Carolina, the loss to UConn, where, quite frankly, they weren't as competitive as the Kentucky game. The Kentucky game was back and forth. They have the ball. They have a chance to win the game. Cadeau has a turnover. He shouldn't have been in the game. And Kentucky's 2 freshman guards played really well in that game.
Yeah.
Kentucky, by the way, is on the struggle bus. I watched Rick Barnes Saturday night after that Carolina game, and I'm watching Rick Barnes. I go, "Oh, that looks like Clemson with skill."
Yeah.
Like they are just there and they're pushing people around. They got little Gainey.
That's
like,
Tennessee, man.
I have a little twinkle in my eye for the Orange.
That's what people expected out of Tennessee when they played UNC.
Yeah.
Because the last time we had seen Tennessee,
but of course
they were bullying Duke in the NCAA
Carolina
tournament.
won that game. It looked like $1 million.
But
we don't want to judge Carolina for the Tennessee game.
No,
but we want to judge them for the Duke, for the UConn or the Kentucky game.
Which gets to my central question.
And also don't give up on Tennessee just because they got run out of the gym that night in Chapel Hill.
Which gets to my central question. Why is this happening? Why is the immediate reaction to anything ACC basketball related? And I get that there's a possibility that we're too close to it. We watch the ACC more than anything else. But I do feel that there is this general attitude that we don't want to give UNC credit for the things they've done well. And we want to use the things that, and I don't know if it's a college football thing. I don't know. It's because the ACC has run things for so long and they're in a weak spot right now that others are popping up to like take their time, like take the corners back. I don't know why. This is a legitimate question. I don't have the answer to. I'm trying to figure it out.
I'm going to give you an answer.
Okay.
It's brand erosion.
Yeah.
Okay. Louisville, a team that they added, had a Hall of Fame coach. They're going through it. Chris Mack, obviously. Irony alert. Irony alert. The national media's favorite effing coach was Chris Mack. Is now part of the reason why one of the biggest brands in the ACC is in the tank. Irony alert. Okay. Louisville in the tank. Syracuse, while on the bubble,
brand
erosion under Boeheim not being there. Pitt. I get it. It's been a minute since
Jamie Dixon.
I get it. It's been a minute since Send It In, Jerome.
Yeah.
But Jamie Dixon had a few squads too.
He did.
Not there anymore. You just kind of go down the list and you're like, okay, well, if those guys go down, who comes up? Right? Duke and Carolina are steady. Virginia plays the most boring brand of basketball in the history of basketball. Tony does himself no favors by having the personality publicly that he does. And then what's left? Our favorite guy is Forbes, but
they got to win more.
Breaking news: they're not in the tournament. They haven't been in the tournament.
Wake has to win more. I think
part of that brand erosion too, Joe. Just to piggyback on this, like the other day, I was watching. I think it was a Monday night game on one of the AC. It was on ESPN proper, and it was like Pitt and Georgia Tech or something like that. And he had all this ACC branding, and it took me like 20 minutes to figure out it was actually an ACC game. Like Pitt, they're not really an ACC. Georgia Tech, like it was like
it's only going to get worse,
right?
By the way.
That's what I'm saying. So I think that this is their problem. Like you watch a Big East game, you get the warm and fuzzies over somebody, Right, even if it's Providence, you get the warm and fuzzies.
To be fair,
and now look who's bringing St. John's back.
To be fair, it took the Big East a little bit of time to find its new identity with non-classic Big East schools. Remember, the classic Big East schools, for the most part, in the ACC.
Right.
So it took a while for the Big East, and who knows? Given the way things are going in college athletics, which we'll talk about a little bit later on with the SEC and the Big Ten. It's a big day for the Joshes. You know, Josh Graham might be right at the ACC should be a boutique basketball league in the same way that the Big East is, because that's where things are headed. You talk about brand erosion, and this is where I know it's true for Duke and Carolina. The brand erosion is there. I love to see West,
even though they're successful,
but it's not the same.
I understand. Yeah, you're right.
It's not the same. I love to see our guy West Durham thriving. I love that the conversation they had with the Greensboro Sports Commission in the Greensboro Coliseum with Roy Williams and Mike Krzyzewski will get its TV treatment at the end of the month. I love to see that. But they're still trotting out Coach K and Roy Williams to talk about the good old days. And to quote The Wire, the thing about the good old days is that they were the good old days. They ain't coming back. It is what it is. You have to evolve. And that's where I am with Duke and Carolina specifically. We have to evolve in the way that we talk about these things. Because you don't have Mike Krzyzewski, because you don't have Roy Williams, because you don't have those identifiable brands, because college basketball really keys in on the coaches you like, as you mentioned. Like the national media love Chris Mack. Well, we're going to talk about Louisville. You know, there's a group of people who love Ed Cooley, so they're going to be talking about Georgetown, right? So John Shire and Hubert Davis don't have that yet. They just don't have that yet. And when you're looking for sizzle, plus John Shire, but John Shire's not bringing out hate, man. He's just not. Yeah. You might want to make fun of his faces from back in the day, but he's not bringing out hate. Hubert Davis, I still think there's some sort of like, there's a lot of having to overcorrect for the year that was last year. That I still think there are some people who still want to see more out of Hubert Davis, even though they completely turned it around this year.
Yeah, Hubert is also, for someone who worked in the media as long as he did, for the brand that he worked for as long as he did, he's kind of super awkward.
He doesn't give a
with
shit.
The media.
No, he doesn't give a shit about the media. That's what it is.
Right.
Awkward or not, he just doesn't give a shit about the media, and that's his prerogative. And clearly, it's not necessarily affecting him if they're going to win basketball games.
But real quick about the coaches, because I actually noticed this on the scroll.
Yeah.
The other night, college basketball forever has been about the coaches.
Always.
Because the turnover is on the player on the roster. Even back then, it was like, okay, well, how do you identify Georgetown? John Thompson. How do you identify Syracuse? Jim Boeheim, right? That's the 80s, the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the scroll in 2024. And on the scroll, it says Bill Self lead on the scroll, the ESPN scroll. Bill Self leads Kansas too, ... I challenge you in the history of ESPN to get Brian Ives on this. Have they ever put an NBA score ticker that says
Doc Rivers,
Phil Jackson, ... leads, ...
They won't.
In a regular season? What?
They won't. Brian.
Bill Self leads? I was like, what?
Brian, I know you're listening, so we'll Venmo you some money.
No, don't make him do all
freelance.
That.
You know he will, because he's wired that way. We'll Venmo you some money if you can come up with that stat. We would appreciate that.
But this is the Dick Vitale.
No, you're right. You're right about.
We wanted to promote the Michelangelo baby, the general baby.
Yes.
You know, it's not the players, it's the coaches in the college game. Well,
and that extends itself with the game itself, right? And we'll wrap the conversation here on this particular topic before we move on to the Big East and the SEC, or the Big Ten and the SEC. There's a retconning of last year in how after the Duke Carolina series ended with these iconic Coach K moments, you know, beating Coach K at Cameron Indoor, sending him home from the Final Four in New Orleans, that the rival, it's over. We got the ultimate trump card. And you're right. From a fan perspective, you will always have the trump card over a Mike Krzyzewski discussion in the rivalry. But it simply ended a chapter, and now we're entering into a new chapter, and we don't know where it's going. It's being written right now as we watch. But you can't sit here and tell me that Carolina fans, the cope of saying, well, you know, we ended Coach K's career was relevant last year when they got swept by Duke, and Duke won the ACC championship, and Duke was crushing it in recruiting while Hubert Davis was going through the transfer portal, having guys leave. Oh my, Cooper Flagg is coming, and oh my, Kyle Filipowski is coming back. What? And these guys are leaving, and what's going on? The cope levels were not good enough by just invoking, well, but we beat Coach K. You didn't care about it last year. You didn't care about it last year. So it's like this first world problem that I saw emerge when, well, you know, this game just doesn't have the same feel because, after the Coach K thing, it's whatever. We always have the ultimate trump card. I'm like, you weren't feeling that way last year. Okay. So I think for this game in particular, we're just going through an evolutionary process of what the next chapter is going to be. And I don't know, maybe Kyle Filipowski helped it. I know Cooper Flagg is going to help it next year, because if you need somebody you don't like, Cooper Flagg's going to be that guy. Or I don't know, maybe we just need another Art Heyman moment. I don't know. Those are things to look forward to in the future. I'm very excited about it. Big thanks to Hometown Realty for sponsoring Ovias and Giglio. Check them out, myhtr.com. Interest rates are getting a lot of headlines because the interest rates are coming down, which might get people a little bit more motivated to buy and sell a home as the weather gets warmer. That's another reason why homes start selling again. It's the spring, XYZ. Get on it. Avoid the frenzy. Get with myhtr.com.
Yeah, if you're really serious about being somewhere new next year for the next school year, now is the time to reach out. Hometown Realty, myhtr.com. You could buy, sell, calculate 6 locations from here to the coast, more than 250 agents. And more importantly, get into that new construction. Every morning, Joe, I'm driving by it and I see it.
I know.
And I'm ready to invent the, what is the thing in Star Trek? Is the teleporter? Or I can,
yes.
Do I snap? Am I like Kazoo? Am I
no.
Genie?
No, you got to get into
how many older rereferences can I make?
You got to go stand in something. You need Scotty to basically push up. They had
beam me up.
They had a bunch of, essentially they had a mixer. That's all it was. It was a repurposed mixer. It was like the Roadcaster. They just did the dials up.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to do that for me. With all this new construction. So do yourself a favor. Get in on that new construction. Get over to Hometown Realty. It's myhtr.com.
Let's say you refinance. Let's say you bought that house. Let's say you need to close. That's where Whitaker and Hamer can help you out. Check them out, wh.lawyer, attorneys and counselors at law. And again, big thanks to Josh and the crew for helping us out for the Tecmo tournament over at Shady's. If you haven't gone to Shady's yet, you should. And I don't know, maybe we'll give you another reason to visit Shady's in May.
Spoiler.
Might be cooking up something in the future. Just saying, be on the lookout for that. Should be a lot of fun.
Next topic, please.
So Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports, dropped a couple of nuggets over the weekend related to the Friday news dump of the SEC and the Big Ten announcing they've got some sort of working committee to better get through the logistics of college athletics.
Are they going to look each other in the eyes?
Somewhere I saw ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips on Saturday night at the Smith Center. And, we did the usual chit chat and I was like, hey man, love to talk. He's like, yeah, we'll set something up.
Do you want me to sell you out right now or no?
By all means. That's why I brought it up.
Because I think I figured this out. You went, you dropped the full hammer on Jim Phillips on this podcast after.
It was after the college football playoff.
The Florida State. Yeah, you went all the way. You dropped the hammer on him.
Yeah.
So
that was not performative, by the way.
No. So what I think
it's not performative.
If I'm understanding the situation correctly here, you were in Chapel Hill on Saturday.
Yeah.
Jim Phillips thought you were me.
Yes.
He thought you were Giglio, not Ovius.
Yes. It was expressed to me that he thought he would talk to you.
In my head, I took that as this is the first time he's seeing either one of us since the podcast.
Since that, yeah.
So he must think in his head, oh, the one that went hard, the one who usually goes hard is Giglio. Ovius is, usually the more level-headed one.
I'm usually a good cop.
Yeah. So in his head, he's probably like, well, I saw the clip of somebody absolutely just dropping the hammer on me. It had to have been Giglio.
We'll see if
I think that's what happened.
We'll see if we catch up with Jim Phillips at the ACC tournament. We shall see. So as I joked on social media, though, I know you're making a face like, no, Joe, that's not going to happen. I know. We got to try.
That's fine.
We got to try.
No, I'm just laughing.
We're going to be in DC.
It makes me laugh sometimes when you unleash the fury and people not you dealing with the consequences, but you unleash the fury sometimes and you let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
Like NC State doesn't even talk to me. Like for what? Who the hell knows?
Who knows?
Right?
Who knows?
But you want to be in the game, you got to deal with the consequences.
You want to be, not only do you want to be in the game, at least I show up and still talk to you.
Yeah.
There's another thing that happens with that. I mean, a lot of people drop the hammer on whoever and then they never actually show up.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's a different conversation altogether. Yep. That's when I get in my own, that almost sounds like a summer series of media pet peeves. Anyway,
I already aired one of mine.
You did. I joked like, clearly Jim Phillips is punching couch cushions, branded couch cushions in Charlotte when he sees the release. I'm like, whoa. Did you guys just remix my alliance? Is this the Super Alliance? Wait a minute, that was my idea, guys. And it's not
ding 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 ding.
So it's not lost on me that Tim's trying going, you mother bleepers. That was supposed to be my legacy. And now you guys are doing a Super Alliance?
If he really is the sleeper agent deployed by Jim Delaney.
Maybe. So
to kill the ACC, then maybe it's all part of it.
As Dellinger calls it, this nameless joint effort. No, let's just call it the Super Alliance, y'all. A historic cooperative movement between the country's most powerful leagues is an initial step in their intent to steer the future of college athletics. The latest examples of authority shifting from the NCAA's age-old national governance model to its more prominent conferences. Okay, fine. When that news drops, the next day, we get another Ross Dellinger piece headlined. I got to go all the way to the top because I want to get to the SMU situation. With college football playoff still undecided on future format, SEC and Big Ten express doubts in commitment. Quick context. The college football playoff still has 2 more years on its television deal. They're expanding it to 12 teams for the next 2 years. It runs out in 2026. However, with all the craziness that's happened in college football, the proposed and agreed upon 6-6 model is actually no longer in play.
Yeah, I mean, that's the old math, right?
That's the old math. Now they want to do a 5-7 model. But really,
but who's we when you say they?
Well, that's the thing.
Because I suspect, as all along, the SEC has been like, no, let's just committee this thing. Let's just put 12 teams in, so we get 8 of them.
It's all about money distribution too. So this is the 2 parts that I found interesting. They brought up SMU's situation. This is from Ross Dellinger's piece. ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips expressed his disappointment in the situation at Yahoo Sports last month and recently introduced a compromise proposal that is expected to be further examined in the coming week. At least 2 leagues, the SEC and the Big Ten, do not support granting any more Power 5 distribution to those teams elevating from Group of 5 to the soon-to-be Power 4, a decision they said was made months ago. In an interview last month, Sankey pointed to the CFP's longstanding rules around modifications to revenue policies. Quote, you have to have unanimous votes to alter revenue distribution and diminish somebody else's revenue. That's it. The situation with SMU is a window into what is poised to be the most hotly contested debate for any new college football playoff contract starting in 2026, the revenue distribution model. And it goes into deeper conversation about how it's set up. Again, quick context before you continue. The TV deal runs out in 2026. Earlier in January, there was a report that ESPN was willing to drop over $1 billion to buy out the remaining years and then tack on a 6-year extension to be the exclusive home for the college football playoff. However, do you think the Big Ten, who's partnered with Fox, and again, a report that Fox was interested in the college football playoff, wants to cede all of that to ESPN? Of course they don't. So money is the root of why the Big Ten and the SEC are getting together. They want to take over what this playoff is going to look like with the threat of, fine, you don't want to do the college football playoff our way? We'll do our own college football playoff. That's what this is about.
The SMU part is some rich irony there. Like Jim Phillips fighting for SMU to get money from the playoff when the ACC, spoiler, will not be giving SMU any money. It's good enough for us, but it's not good enough for you. What? Again, the ScarJo mind trick that SMU has pulled. I can't get over it. I struggle with it.
Now,
but I don't want to sleep with you. Yeah, but it's free.
Why not? I still don't. But it's free.
But it's free.
It's great. Still don't want to. I have to balance out how I view these things because
why are they going to fight over SMU?
because it's
Of
on
all the things.
it's on principle. I think that's what it's
What
about.
is the Big 12 doing then with Central Florida?
That's what
okay.
it is. I mean, that's ultimately what it is, and I think they can pinpoint.
What are we
SMU.
really talking about here? 4 teams?
Yeah, we're not talking about a lot of teams.
Memphis or Cincinnati, whichever one is.
It's actually I think it's
Houston.
I think it's to what you just joked about. It's that SMU is not taking any money from the ACC to join the ACC, and the SEC and the Big Ten are going, wait a minute. So where's that money going to go? Oh, you want it for yourself? Nah, we're not doing that. Come on now. As if SMU is really going to have a chance in the college football playoff anyway.
Well, this is a separate pool.
It is a separate pool.
The playoff money is distributed, just for a little bit of background. The playoff money is distributed. The reason the playoff got off the ground to begin with was the 14 playoff was exponentially more than the BCS. And part of that was a guarantee, because remember, 5 conferences in 2013 got together and said, one of us every year, at least one of us every year is going to get left out. Well, how would you agree to that? You had guaranteed payoffs to the Power 5 conferences. Also part of that. So 80% of the money went to the Power 5.
Yeah.
And then it was like 15 or 18% went to the group of 5 schools, conferences, not schools, conferences. And then the rest there was a small amount to the FCS and some other schools. So what SMU is saying and what ACC is saying, well, no, that now SMU is part of a Power 5, so we should get more based on having more teams in our conference. And the people who control this, the SEC, the Big Ten, are like, no, that's not happening.
So there's the thing that we have to balance with this. These schools love committees, man. They want a working group to come up with a committee. The committee sends it to another committee, and I think we can. I think we can all agree that. Yeah, getting rid of the NCAA is something that people feverishly want, but all you're doing.
Did you see Patino post game?
No, I didn't see Patino post game. Good. What did he say?
Well, sorry to derail you. You know that Tennessee is being investigated for NIL stuff, and Florida State had already gotten their hands slapped.
Tennessee's like, guys, you can't do this retroactively.
Now they're suing, and that's what Patino was saying, basically like. Every time he's basically said the NCAA enforcement needs to go away.
Yeah.
Because every time something happens, they're just going to get sued. You saw this with the transfer portal, including state of North Carolina. Now with the NIL, Tennessee and the state of Virginia, I don't know why, but maybe something's going on with Virginia Tech, I don't know, are now suing the NCAA over this NIL enforcement. So Patino was like, you can't, there's no point. Just do the things that we've talked about. Go run a great volleyball tournament and a great soccer tournament. Don't worry about all the other stuff that you think you're supposed to be in charge of.
But the point here is that you can get rid of the NCAA as an enforcement, but somebody else has to come in and replace that, which is, again, another set of arbitrary rules.
And maybe that's a commissioner. Maybe that's a sport by sport commissioner.
Ultimately, that is what college athletics needs. Yeah. I mean, Mike Krzyzewski has been screaming that sort of thing for college basketball for years.
What's good for football is different than what's good for basketball. It's different than what's good for soccer.
But I think that's where this is ultimately headed, that the Big Ten and the SEC will become the AFC and the NFC of college football. You're going to have football-only members of these two institutions, or these two conferences. I think that in several years
as they should.
Because at some point,
Chip Kelly's been on this, and I think he's right.
At some point, both the Big Ten and the SEC are going to look at the lower tier schools that don't compete and say, all right, you're just either there's going to be a change in the revenue distribution model, or they're going to contract them and they're going to add other teams. Maybe they add a relegation type system too, which is not very American, but who knows? I can dream, right? The point is, we see where
Vanderbilt earns their way.
We see where this is going. Vanderbilt, Indiana. Who would have thought? We see where this is going. But is it going to be a professionalization of college athletics, or are they still going to try to do this rigmarole of, well, we want these athletes and there's NIL, but they're not employees, okay? If the Big Ten and the SEC are doing this because they want to get to the endpoint, which is making players employees of the universities, and there's payrolls, salary caps, etc.
Patino was saying that too. Yeah.
If that's where they're headed, Godspeed, man. But be careful, because they're still universities at the end of the day. And the universities have been dragged, as much as the NCAA gets sued and they're dragged kicking and screaming into where they need to be modernized, the universities also need to be dragged kicking and screaming when it comes to paying the players. They still want to put the burden of paying players on the boosters. They want to put the burden of paying players on you, the fan. They want the NIL collective subscription models and everything else. They do not want that to go on the university books. So there's a couple ways to go about this, but sometimes in our pitchforks to go get the NCAA, you understand that the NCAA is made up of these institutions.
Scooby-Doo with the mask. Yeah.
Okay. It's the hot dog meme. All right. From I Think You Should Leave. We're trying to find the guy who did this. Oh, you, the presidents, did this. And now you want to form your own thing to do more of the same. So you got to be a little bit careful what you wish for. But I think we can all agree, based on what happened with this news, based on what's going on with the college football playoff revenue distribution model, the ACC is screwed. No. This is yet another case. Again, we're just putting stacks. We're just putting stacks.
I know it was like a 10-minute segment. Like,
I know, to tell you.
Was that even really necessary?
That was 10 minutes of setup to tell you, folks, yet again, the ACC is screwed. They're screwed. Okay? That's it. It's a wrap. This is just yet another example. I hope you enjoyed that long and winding road to such a revelation. The ACC is screwed. Big thanks to Breeze Through for helping us out here on Ovies and Giglio. Check them. They might be part of that thing that we're doing in May. You never know. They have a food truck with Breeze Through.
They do.
Just point that out. Just point that out. And Breeze Through's definitely going to be powering me this week with the coffee, because there's a couple late night ACC basketball games here in the Triangle. So that's going to help you out. And most importantly, you can't get gas. Joe just realized you can get gas at Breeze Through. What a concept.
Like, it's sad, but it's true.
Also, big thanks to Butcher's Market. We were there last week, their new location, Lake Boone Shopping Plaza. It's been open for just over a month. Had a good time doing the live show from there. Kenneth is going to help us out with our OG tailgate later in February. You might not want to wait to get your own tailgate needs, Super Bowl needs. Head on over to the Butcher's Market to get all that fun stuff. Who says the Super Bowl has to be things like party platters, grill, signature steak tips on Super Bowl Sunday? Ooh, now we're talking. Now we're talking. And we're also talking about bundling and saving. That's what you can do with Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. Check them out. bugsbite.com is the website. These are two separate services, but it's great to combine them because they're two different needs that you do need to address. There's mosquitoes, which is Mosquito Authority. And then you have Pest Authority handling all the things on the interior of your house. Things like moisture, which is very, very crucial. So
Gold Star listener Troy did the same thing. Gave them a shout. Went online to bugsbite.com. Saved a bunch of money.
I love it. All right, let's get out of here on some Hey Joe.
I was going to say, I feel like the Frasier music is the international sign for, hey, let's get out of here on some Hey Joe questions.
It has evolved into that.
I like that.
It has evolved into that. The Frasier music is where we're getting out of here on some Hey Joe questions. Although this week, we're not doing Hey Joe questions.
No, we're not.
We are contractually obligated to SEO this bad boy and talk about the Super Bowl. It's Super Bowl week, Joe. We got to come up with all sorts of zany topics, list topics, Mount Rushmores of Super Bowl commercials. What was your greatest halftime performance? Rank them. We all know it's Prince.
Give me a minute here.
What are you looking up?
Let me add something to the screen.
What are you looking up?
So I, as a kid, a friend of mine used to work in the NFL. And a friend of my dad's friend.
Yeah.
Used to work for the NFL, and they went every year. And I would get pennants and posters and so many cool things. And I hate the NFL for homogenizing the Super Bowl logo. So while we're on the list of Mount Rushmore of best Super Bowl things, look, I can't even present the poster the right way.
It's fine. It's cute.
It's embarrassing.
It's fine. Nick, put it back up.
The Super Bowl. I'll twist it.
No, it's fine. We'll just put it back up.
The Super Bowl
we'll just have
16
people turn their
poster.
Phones.
The Super Bowl 16 poster from Detroit. This also happens to be the most watched Super Bowl in the history of the game. It's to this day, it still is from 82. I remember watching this in my living room. My dad had hooked up the TV to our living room, which had never been done before. Look, the thing is gorgeous, and I hate that they've gone away from the city. This is Detroit, and I remember back in the day, I'm looking at these things, and I had no idea what they were. And my dad was like, "It's for cars, Joe. Like Detroit is the Motor City.
Yeah,
Joe.
they're hood ornaments.
Emblems.
Yeah,
Joe. And I was like,
ornaments.
oh.
Yeah.
If you come to my house, I still have this poster hanging up in my kitchen.
I know you do.
So I hate that the Super Bowl has gone away from these things because the Vegas, the possibilities for the Vegas personalized Super Bowl would be just amazing.
The hood ornaments.
Maybe we should ask AI today.
Okay.
And we'll present what the Super Bowl 58, is that what we're up to?
I think so.
What Super Bowl 58 would look like in the vintage Super Bowl poster. Super Bowl poster.
Right. I'll see if I can make
your
that
dad
happen.
would be all over that, man. Your pops went to a bunch of Super Bowls,
My
right?
dad didn't collect posters; he collected programs.
No, but he went to the games.
He went to the games.
Yeah.
He went to the games.
Yeah, that was the program cover. Yeah, I had a bunch of programs.
Yeah. My dad, to this day, if I go to a Final Four or anything like that, he always says, "Hey, bring me back a program." Joey, bring back a program. That's totally what I do. All right, so let's get into some SEO. And if I scream Brock Purdy and Cam Newton, I can just sit back and just watch the clicks and the views wash over me. Brock Purdy, Cam Newton, AI, do your thing.
I'm so confused on this whole thing, man.
We have hit a critical point in the, are we having the same conversation when it comes to Brock Purdy? Let's provide Cam Newton's perspective before we get to Brock Purdy and how the rest of the week in the Super Bowl coverage is going to go. You'll remember that Cam Newton went viral a few weeks ago when he talked about the differences between game changers and game managers. And he raised a few eyebrows, in particular when he said Dak Prescott is a game manager. Of course, we saw what happened with the Dallas Cowboys and suddenly went, oh, maybe Cam was onto something. But now that
Tua Tagovailoa was in the same category,
Brock Purdy
was in this category.
So now that the San Francisco 49ers are in the Super Bowl, and Brock Purdy did have a nice game-ending drive that resulted in a Christian McCaffrey touchdown that ended up being the difference. People were like, there it is. There's your game-winning drive. That's where Brock Purdy's a game changer. I know Brock Purdy did what Brock Purdy's done all season. He's had his ups and downs, but he has one key difference from Jimmy Garoppolo when it comes to running that offense. He'll run. He has the ability to run. So Cam Newton.
But it's wild to me that we went into the season, the 49ers were the second favorite to enter the season. The Chiefs were the first. Yeah. The 49ers were second. They start 5-0, and everyone was very excited about what the 49ers had. They were 5-0, Joe. Then what happened? McCaffrey got hurt. Deebo Samuel got hurt. Brandon Ayuk missed some time.
Weird.
George Kittle was banged up. They lost 3 straight games to Cleveland, Minnesota, and Cincinnati.
So weird.
Without their fully formed Voltron. Weird. Because Brock Purdy then had to win games and couldn't.
So Cam Newton, with Brock Purdy getting to the Super Bowl, has been called out, saying, oh, well, where's your game manager now?
By the strangest of people, too. People who should really know better.
Cam did his show, 4th and 1, and this is just the YouTube short version of it. And he's like, cool that he's in the Super Bowl, but he's not the best player on the team.
I've never said that Brock Purdy was trash. What I did say is Brock Purdy is a game manager. That's not hate. That's just what I feel to be facts. But I still reserve the right to say this. To be labeled a game changer, Brock Purdy has to be the best player on the offensive side of the ball. And that's not the case.
And who's the best player?
Christian McCaffrey. Man, look, I ain't recanting shit. And if you really want to just be honest, if you add in the defensive talent and you add in the offensive talent, Brock Purdy is the 10th best player on his team. Okay, cool. Did he have a great game? Yes. Is he been playing out of his mind? Yes. Is he a quarterback that's hot? Yes. But he's still the 10th best player on his team.
All right, here on the list of many differences between me and Cam Newton.
Yeah.
I feel all of that so deep, man. When he said, I never said Armando Bacot was trash.
Right.
I never said the Carolina roster was trash. And then he gives me I ain't recanting shit. I need all of that, please. Pretty please. I love all of this. I just don't understand why people can't discern the difference between what he's saying about these quarterbacks. And also, I don't get the narrative now of Richard Sherman and others coming out, ESPN's different personalities being like, if you were so good, you'd still be in the NFL. It's like, He's retired.
He's retired.
He poured it out, people.
Yeah, he's done.
He played the position differently than anyone literally in the history of the game.
Yeah, he's done.
He was the MVP. He took Philly Brown to the Super Bowl. Like, this is not the same as taking Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Kittle, all of the defensive players that he mentioned. Now, the Panthers did have an outstanding defense when they went to Super Bowl 50, but
yeah,
I get so confused why people try to make this so personal with Cam.
Well, you know why. You know
I
why.
guess I do,
you
but
know
it's like,
why. And
he
this
has
is where
an informed opinion, and like I don't get it.
This is shout out to Darren Gann of Panthers.com. Back when he used to cover the Panthers for the Rock Hill Herald or for ProFootballTalk.com, he would consistently tell you Cam Newton makes people stupid. And I thought that Cam Newton being off the field, retiring, would cause people to just kind of move on with their lives. The Cam still makes people feel a particular type of way. You're right. He has a fully formed thought. He has backed it up, and he has doubled down, and he's absolutely right. And it's gotten personal. Now I expect Richard Sherman to kind of come after Cam because that has a deeper Seattle, Carolina Panthers thing, right? And Sherman has.
Well, why isn't Richard Sherman still in the NFL?
Sherman, well, because he's now.
I mean,
he's giving out takes. But like
190 defensive backs in the NFL, and you're not one of them.
And then you got the Jason McIntyres of the world that are doing a tail of the tape between Brock Purdy and Cam Newton.
Playoff wins.
Playoff wins. And I'm like, buddy, and the weird retconning of that Super Bowl team, like, well, Cam had all these, he had Pro Bowlers. Why do you think they were Pro Bowlers?
Pro Bowl.
Well, first and foremost, Pro Bowls are the worst metric you can use when judging a level of a team. Because with the Pro Bowl, guys go to the Super Bowl, they don't participate in the Pro Bowl, and they get elevated to Pro Bowl. Like, he's a Pro Bowl quarterback. Right, because 5 different people said, I ain't going to the Pro Bowl. So that makes you a Pro Bowler. It's like me saying, I'm an ESPN personality. You know why I'm an ESPN personality? Because I needed somebody at midnight on ESPN radio to fill in for 2 hours. I ain't the same thing, okay? So this business of like, look at the Pro Bowlers. Why do you, they got to the Pro Bowl because guys had to bail, number one. Number two, the big reason why the Carolina Panthers had Pro Bowlers in that year is because of Cam freaking Newton. Is Greg Olsen a Pro Bowler? Abso-freaking-lutely. But guys get elevated based on their record. They get elevated based on their quarterback play. That's what makes Cam Newton a game changer, because he literally dragged their asses to fame and fortune. But it's personal, man. And Cam Newton makes people stupid. And Brock Purdy is now the next level of making people stupid. I am ready to give that honor of making people stupid to Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy now makes people stupid.
Because they flipped it to somehow saying, like, if you attack our quarterback, nobody gets more criticism, and he's never done anything. And it's like, what? Are you seeing the schooner right now? Like, it's a sailboat. Like, what do you want to see in this picture?
So this becomes a thing.
Like, what?
This becomes a thing. This was on ESPN NFL Countdown. Brock Purdy admits he was awestruck and laughs off game manager tag.
How does it hit you, though, when you're referred to as a game manager?
I think it's sort of funny just because, we're winning. I think over time I might get some respect, but more than anything, it hasn't been about proving people wrong or any of that. It's always been about, just proving myself right. Over time, I've told myself that, I'm good enough and I'm worthy enough to be playing at this level, and over time I'll prove that to myself.
Dramatic string music.
Please tell me that is rights-free music, because the combination of Stranger Things and Game of Thrones has me all over that. Like, I am so jealous.
I'll have to look that up. Something tells me it's not rights-free music. I'm sure that's part of a library of music that Disney pays for and has the rights to.
It's so good.
I'll find out real quick when I put this bad boy on YouTube and I get flagged. Well, we shall see. Look, man.
You want to do a little post edit of the Joes SEO the Super Bowl?
Yeah, we probably should do that. We should probably do that. Actually, I think people should thank Cam Newton.
Yeah. I think
it's
fun. It's a great clip.
It is funny because I saw this. I forgot which NFL writer had put this out on social media, but it was like, why do we care what Cam Newton thinks? Clearly you do. Because much like that Super Bowl season with the dab and how good of a quarterback he is.
Why does he celebrate every first down?
You should thank Cam Newton. Everybody should thank Cam Newton, because without Cam Newton, who's driving the bus? You want to talk about game changers? Cam Newton has now elevated himself into a game changer in the media space.
Yeah.
Let's think about this. Cam's not attached to any network.
Nope.
He's doing it on his own. And he has people completely shifting their rundown of what they're going to talk about that day because, hey, did you see what Cam said on his YouTube show? So people want to like give Pat McAfee all the love and whatnot. Guess who's the next one? Guess who's coming up? Guess who's changing the conversations? It's Cam. So you should be thanking Cam to give you this content rather than be like, well, if you were so good, why are you retired? He's retired. It's over. It's over. Are we going to do that? By the way, we're going to do that when Tom Brady is on TV.
We should, yeah.
Because that's what I'm telling you right now. We already saw glimpses of this with Tom Brady. Tom Brady basically going the Jordan route. Tom Brady's acting like
under these rules.
Seriously, Tom Brady is what, a year removed from playing football, and he's already acting as though he's an NBA player from the 90s on ESPN telling you, well, you know, when I played, I mean, it was practically murder on the court. And now Tom's doing the exact same thing. Well, hey, Tom, if you don't, why aren't you still playing then? Right? So anyway, whole thing's dumb. Cam Newton makes people stupid. We'll see you Tuesday. Can't wait to see what we dig up in the SEO trick bag.